Hello, welcome back to the Off-Grid family. Today I've made something for Crystal for Christmas, and it's a little bit macabre, a little bit gruesome possibly. It could be a very good Halloween gift maybe, but basically I wanted to give my wife my heart, and I did so. So follow along, see if you like it. If you want to make it, I can happily link all of the sort of files I used in various different bits and bobs at the bottom, and all laser cut files I'll put onto my Patreon page for free, like I do with everything. One of the things I'd like it to do is basically when you put it down, it's off, there's nothing going on, and then when you pick it up it will start to beat, as in a light will flash and make it look like it's beating. I did consider putting sound into it, I did consider putting movement. I thought, do you know what, just a red LED flickering on and off in a beat pattern should be good enough. So that's what I've decided to do. It's going to be fairly straightforward. There is going to be microcontrollers, etc. But I will link all of the actual code and everything else into the project, so you don't have to do anything, it's all there for you. Anyway, let's get on. Right, for the physical aspects of this, you're going to need a bell jar type thing. I spent a lot of money on this because I couldn't get one off the internet in time, but I was hoping for something more like this, but such is life. You'll need to 3D print out the heart you want, and I've left a link to this one in the description. There are many to choose from on different websites, and you can also create your own. It's up to you really. And this is an Arduino Pro Mini, but I go on to use the Nano because this one has problems, but you can choose what you want at the size you want. I choose Arduino all the time because they're just so goddamn cheap, you know. So this is the close-up of the 3D printed heart, and I do print a bigger one later on because this one's just a little too small, but I needed it to experiment with anyway. This is the one that I painted, and it was lucky I did because it allowed me to see how many layers of paint I could get away with before I start blocking the light of the LEDs and just practicing getting the colours correct. This here is the Arduino Test on, that's nothing you need to see, forget about it. This is basically just a simple circuit that a light dependent resistor turns on an LED when there's light going to it. So when the item's picked up, an LED will flash, and it's as simple as that. Very simple circuit, and I'll put a link to that in my Patreon. Okay, this was the original heart, then the one I painted, and then this is the full size one that I went for in the end. It's about the actual size, I would say, but I just needed it slightly bigger. I did a very thin coat of the black around the actual pumps, pipes and so on at the top, and then I did the rest with the red, and this is just automotive paints, so I just sprayed it very, very lightly, and then the rest I did with acrylic paints that I'll show you next. So I taped off and sprayed the tubes in black. Now this is where I made a bit of a mistake. I was colouring in with a Sharpie the actual veins, and I'd done that before on the one I'd actually put the white primer layer on first, and sadly they all leaked into each other, and I didn't like the look of it. It's not noticeable on the final product as such, but I notice it. Okay, so the final product before the red spray paint goes on, and I'm really not happy with it, but I can't afford the time or the filament to redo it. So let's spray it all in red. Doesn't matter if you get it on the black tubes at all, it will just blend in later on. This is the final paint job before I go onto it with acrylics. This is just a simple quick spray. Right, I'm no artist, but I just chose a few colours and sort of went with them. Thank you very much, Lily, for lending me your acrylic paints, by the way. But yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here. It's just basically going over it in different places with different colours. But again, try and remember not to use too much paint because you don't want to make it too thick, because the LEDs just won't shine through it if it is too thick. Make the wall of it as thin as you can so that you've got more time to play with the paints, I would say. Okay, so these are all the bits that I've made off camera, and this is just multiple layers of circles stuck with glue to each other, and the top one, or bottom one as this case is, has magnets that connect up to this beautiful lid, just so that we've got somewhere to put all of the electronics, but so it can then be clipped out the way and hidden, and it basically will hold everything in it. So this is the electronics box, let's say. It just pops on like that, we'll glue it there. All the electronics will go inside here, and then the lid can go back on if I get it the right way around. There you go. And that's then the bottom of it, and all the electronics are basically hidden out the way. This here is the lid, just to stop people being able to sort of poke their hands in and stuff. And that will just be epoxied onto the lid like that. This here is the pedestal that I've drilled a hole through so the wires and the LEDs can go up through, and it will hold the heart on. Pretty simple. I'll glue that with hot glue probably. It will just basically sit on like that. Okay, it's time to get this apart and get all the stuff out, and to be honest I was quite annoyed with having to spend the amount I did on this and have all the bits of rubbish in there, because I didn't think it looked any good really. It looks like cheap plastic stuff and being charged for quite a bit of money. Right, now this is my first time of like seeing what they're going to be like and if the actual heart was the right size, and it was the right size luckily enough. I was a bit concerned by that, but it does fit and it looks quite nice. After fiddling around with it for a bit, I realised that I'd need to make a little indentation in the pedestal just to make the heart sort of fit into it a little better. Don't do it this way though, this is not safe, you know, I'm a moron, it's okay, I get away with it, but just don't. There's plenty of safer ways of doing it. So here I'm experimenting with diffusing the light. If you have a look at the bottom one, it is very, very bright and shining right at the camera, and the other one seems more mellow, and that's because I've sanded down the LED, and it just diffuses the light more equally, and it won't just make a big bright circle firing inside the heart. Here I've put one that I've diffused next to the one that isn't, and you can see the difference. It just makes it look so much nicer. Right, as I said, the Pro Mini didn't work, so I'm using the Nano, and I've connected it to a battery pack, which is easy. Off screen I connected wires to the LEDs to make them longer so they could fit up the pedestal, and now I want to start just connecting everything together. I've also used a soldering iron to make a second hole in the heart, as you'll see there, and it just means that I can put the LEDs in each one. This one fits nicely, and the other one I'm going to have to hot glue into and make it, you know, stay where I want it. But let's get constructing. So just a dot of hot glue for the LEDs, simple as that. Okay, I stuck the base and the circles together off screen, and now I need to decide where the front and the back is, and I've done that by drilling two little holes for the LDR, and that is going to be at the back, and so the front will just be completely opposite to that. And now we can decide where the pedestal's going and drill a little hole. Okay, that's done, and now we want to start getting this all properly put together. So the first thing, let's put the heart through the pedestal, well, the wires of the heart through the pedestal. That sounds weird, I didn't think I'd ever say that. And we'll see what that looks like for a start, and we can just slowly start putting everything together in its place. I'm actually quite happy with the way that looks. That looks pretty good actually. This is perhaps the scariest bit for me, gluing the actual heart in place, because once I've done this, if I mess it up, that's it. I can't go back. That's, you know, that's the project. We've got to start all over again. Okay, this part was just as scary, sticking it to the actual main bit, whatever that's called. So again, if I mess this up, I've got a lot of... this bit I could have sort of covered up, sort of thing, but it was still scary. Right, I've poked that through a spool of wire while it dries, and now I'm going to just try the actual bell jar thing on top. And this is the first time I've actually tried it all together, and to be honest, I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, I've wired it all up off camera, and now I'm able to start testing things. The schematics will be on my Patreon page for free, so check it out. So as long as the lid goes on, we are all happy. If the lid doesn't go on, then I will cry, and that's that. And this is the genuine first time I've tried the lid on top with it all in, and thank God it does completely close up and there is no gaps, etc. Happy days. Something I've noticed is the pedestal at the bottom is quite noticeably glued down, so I'm going to use these rough old looking things to stick around it to see if it can cover up some of the base. There was nothing I could do. The actual pedestal was slightly wonky, and I used the glue just to prop it up. So I'm just going to play around with the greenery and the redery, I should say, and get it so it looks nice. You know, place around the bottom of it just to make it, you know, cover it all up, etc. Right, I've got it so all the foliage is sorted and glued down, and basically I'm now at the point where I can epoxy this whole thing together. I've put all that tape around it just so that I can actually hopefully get this down without rubbing epoxy over everything else. That's what I'm worried about. So the tape is there just so I can plonk it down, epoxy it on with the Gorilla Glue, as you can see here, and then basically just plonk it down without getting it everywhere. That's the hope anyway. I chose Gorilla Glue just because it's for glass and mud and cheese and whatever else you want to glue together, and it is good stuff. It is quite expensive, this was £5, but it should do the trick. Not sure if you're interested, but here are the designs I made for the laser cutting side of things. A brief look into my brain. Now this is the part that was scaring me the most, because one tiny little error and this could be the whole thing. Absolutely back to square one, and I couldn't afford it, so, you know, I'd have just quit and cried about it. Now I was quite lucky because this literally went exactly to plan, and I couldn't have got it any better. A tiny bit of epoxy went onto the back of it, but that was it. I was terrified I'd get this everywhere. Normally I'd be wearing gloves and a full hazmat suit kind of thing, but I literally only got the tiniest drop right at the back there, and that was it. It was unnoticeable after I'd wiped it away. And there we go. The last piece of the puzzle being put into place, making sure I get it around the right way. And that is it. Done just in time for Christmas, and my favourite gift is always one that's been made. Right, there you go. That's the end of that one. It was quite a long project actually. I started it later than I should have, and it took me much longer than I thought. Various things went wrong. It was one of those projects where if it can go wrong, it would go wrong, and it was because it was something I really wanted to do, and I wanted to make it as good as I could, so it was obvious things were going to go wrong. But they were all things that hopefully, with the things I've put on Patreon and all of the other bits and bobs that I've put online for you guys, it should make it so you shouldn't have any of those problems I've had. Anyway, I hope to goodness that you had a really good Christmas, and I really hope that you have a brilliant New Year. Well, I hope you have a brilliant year, because, you know, the last couple of years have been a bit poo. Hopefully this is the changing point. Anyway, thank you so much. Hopefully my upload schedule will be back on track now, and the quality of my project should get better as I get better. So let's see how we get on. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.